How's it going? All right. Welcome to the Digital Dreaming Off the Gridiron podcast. I'm your host, Oscar Lee. I'm joined today by former NFL veteran, author, keynote speaker, and all-around inspiration, Marques Ogden. Marques, how you doing today, brother?
How you doing? Please, thanks for having me on, man.
My camera went a little bit. There we go. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's great to have you on. I know that we were supposed to do this earlier, but I had difficulty setting up the podcast. Now it's pretty much good to go. So, yeah, no, it's great to have you.
Thanks a lot,
how's your year been? I've seen you've been pretty active, obviously, with your own podcast and a bunch of activity with speaking. So,
yeah, things are going really well, man. We're busy with speaking and our podcast. We released today our episode with Nate Boyer, who is really a phenomenal guy, having a lot of great interaction with people that are listening to it. And people are now really more excited about upcoming guests in the future. So it's really been a great way to end out 2021, heading into 2022.
Right. And, to that point, actually, so I'm in the process. So I actually had the pod. So I think you, so I didn't realize this, but you also played in the AIF.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
yeah.
I did.
Let me just show you this. You might like that. I played when it was still there, when this A was still there in 2020. Sorry, 2012. Yeah. And this ring right here, that's with the Cal Eagles. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I won Special Teams Player of the Year. We won the Western Conference, and then we got the championship game against Cape Fear Heroes, and then they blew us out 79-27.
Yeah, I know a few guys played with Cape Fear, man.
Yeah, no, Cape Fear, I mean, they're a great organization and great team,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. So we'll start from the beginning. The time we have, and we'll kind of progress through. So we'll start from your early life. I think were you born and raised? I forget the exact area. Where are you actually from? Like, where you?
I'm from Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. Okay, yeah, because you went to Howard University, so I read that. I just wasn't sure if you're actually from the D.C. area. So
yep, from Washington, D.C. Went to St. John's College High School in Northwest D.C. and then went to Howard University after that.
Wow, yeah, and obviously, I mean, I think you're an All-American with Howard, right? A few times.
Correct. Yep, two-time All-American at Howard, three-time All-Conference. I was a four-year starter. I played right tackle my first 2 years, left tackle my third year, went back to right tackle, and then I ended up playing center the last 6 games of my senior year because our starting center blew his knee out, and we had nobody else that could play center, and they put me in the center at that time.
So you pretty much got your experience at center around your college. I guess what was that your senior year? You said, right? Junior, senior.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So when you're getting to your pro day and your combine invite and getting closer to the draft, how were you able to kind of take that? I mean, were teams looking at you as kind of all around the line, or were they looking at you specifically for center or tackle?
No, everybody's gonna be mainly to tackle. I mean, I'm 6'5.5", almost 6'6". I ended up playing a little bit of center in training camp with the Jaguars just to kind of get myself into the physicality of the game at that elite level. But when I was coming out, I went to the Hula Bowl and I played there under Mac Brown. So played there, and it was a great week of practice. My quarterback for our team was Cliff Kingsbury, who's now the head coach of the Cardinals. I also had Jack Harbaugh, the father of Jim and John Harbaugh, was my line coach. So it was great. And then on the other side was Larry Coker from Miami, was the head coach of the other team. But it was really great, man. Played with some great guys. Like I said, Cliff Kingsbury was on my team. Jordan Black, who was the offensive tackle for the Chiefs, was on the other team. One of my good friends who's on the other team who came to the Jaguars with me was Brett Romberg. He was a center out of Miami. So it was great. It was just great to be around a lot of great athletes. Of course, the NFL teams were there, scouting, directors of scouting, general managers, head scouts. So it was really great to have a lot of phenomenal experiences at the Hula Bowl.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think and I just finished reading Scottie Pippen's autobiography, Unguarded. So he kind of also talked about his experience from his senior year at Central Arkansas to kind of getting more exposure to a senior kind of, all-star game or all those post kind of, senior year kind of workouts and invites. And I mean, it was pretty interesting to kind of hear how he was able to kind of get not just because obviously in our sport, the Hula Bowl or the Senior Bowl, or these are types of, kind of marquee events. But in basketball, I mean, I just found it interesting because, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, like, you know, they have the individual kind of, you know, games they have for seniors, but they also have like back then they had street hoops. And so Pippen actually played with D Wade's dad in Chicago, and he ironically ended up getting drafted there. I thought it was really cool. And you know, obviously me reading, I haven't read your book fully, Sleepless Nights, but you know, I obviously looked it up, and it seems pretty inspiring. And I do have it on my list, on my reading list, to kind of read kind of through your journey as well. So
yeah, it was great, man. I mean, the great thing is everybody's got a story to see. The question is, how can you tell that story to help others in their journey? That's really the key of helping people and getting them to want to be inspired, especially in my career as a keynote speaker, executive coach, and consultant. It's all about how do you package that story to give people inspiration, hope, and action steps to get them going forward towards where they want to go.
And I watched one of your speeches from 2 years ago, and you kind of talked through kind of, I forgot the exact steps in that cycle, but you talked through the cycle of kind of self-improvement. And you also talked about kind of your experiences, you know, obviously, like, you know, I'll open up this box of worms just because, you know, I think it's important for our listeners, right? Because you touched on an interesting point about inspiration and making sure that you highlight, you know, kind of what you're good at. You know, obviously, you know, when I stopped playing, and I obviously didn't play, you know, at the NFL, so, you know, take that with a grain of salt, but I realized that, you know, like for me, I'm gonna have to figure out something that, you know, will be better because, you know, once the dream's done, it's done, you know? And, you know, luckily for me, I realized that, fortunately, I realized sooner than later, right? So I was able to kind of figure, okay, yeah, I need to go back to school, I need to get a degree, you know, and you pretty much, you know, then the rest is history now. You know, I work as a consultant, right, in the field. But kind of with your story, obviously, I mean, like you obviously were in the league. You obviously, you know, came from a great athletic family with your older brother. But also, I mean, when you actually finished up your career, you basically looked into business interests and business investing. But that was ultimately your downfall in terms of finances, because you believed so strongly in your idea that you basically just kept pushing forward. And, you know, I think one of the things that I've learned recently, because I also suffered some setbacks my last year playing. I mean, it was for me just investing like tens of thousands of dollars into things that, you know, that were just really you know, really bad kind of business ideas, and just teammates, you know, because we had that relationship. My teammates would say, hey, put your money here, like, you know, do this, you know, right? And I obviously, you know, me just using trust instead of, you know, betting the idea, I ended up losing money that way. And I was able to kind of recover this past year. So I'm thankful for that. But pretty much kind of, you know, with your experience, you obviously did everything kind of the right way, and you end up losing money. You know what I mean? And I think it's something important because, you know, that's kind of, you basically then, that was your turning point. That was kind of your moment of truth to say, yeah, you know, you're done playing and you want to kind of, you know, do your business, but then business was ultimately not really, you know, it wasn't all that it cracked it to be. So you have to figure out kind of, you know, where to go from there, right?
So for me, man, I got into construction after my NFL career, built this massively successful 8-figure-a-year business. But unfortunately, I got anchored into my way of doing business, and I didn't pivot with the times. I wasn't good at marketing different ways, like through social media. I was really bad at listening to my trusted team members and my employees. I became very power hungry, very ego-centric, and I just stopped. And I stopped caring about people, and I started caring about money and fame and notoriety, what I call external motivating factors. As a result of that, Asif, I made some really bad decisions, and I ended up losing all of my money working for a big client in downtown Baltimore, and things were really moving in the right direction. And at the end of the day, for me, what I tell people is that if you get anchored into a way of thinking, or anchored into doing something a certain style, or you want to get to a certain point and then you're going to just stay in doing things the same way, you are really wiring your brain for potential sabotage or destruction, because getting anchored in is not going to be at all times, and most of the time, a lot of times, the best way to do things. Yes, you want to get anchored into having great core values. You want to get anchored into treating people correctly. You want to get anchored into, you know, doing good business, but you don't want to get anchored into how to do things a certain way, or how to do business a certain way. You want to be able to pivot and change and adapt with the times. If you can't do those things, Asif, then you're literally in a position where you're going to have this potential catastrophic situation. And that's exactly what happened to me, losing all my money, going through all this. I went through a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, home foreclosed on, car repossessed. It was absolutely a nightmare in 2013.
Yeah. And obviously with that, that was, again, I mean, because that was your lowest point, and then you basically, had to figure out kind of, how to navigate. And I know obviously you took some coaching gigs, and you also had to do the janitor thing, and you're basically on the brink of, like, to your point, at the brink of homelessness. And so kind of what did you, because in that speech you basically said, then you had to kind of realize, okay, nothing's going to be given to me. I have to figure out what I need to do. Right. What was like the immediate kind of, okay, this is exactly what I'm going to, just take and run with.
So for me, my moment was I ended up moving down here to Raleigh. I ended up filing my bankruptcy. Well, let me go back. I moved down here to Raleigh. I was so broke that I couldn't pay off my bankruptcy. It took me almost 7 months. Between April and September of 2013, it took me that long to actually completely pay my bankruptcy attorney to file the bankruptcy. And in that time, I was working a couple different jobs, Merrill Lynch, another construction company, got fired from 2 jobs, both those jobs actually in the same week. I picked up becoming an entrepreneur, running a football program, coaching kids and the youth about sports and football. That did well, but unfortunately, as the season took into play, that August and going into September, a lot of my clients stopped coming to train because they had games to play, practice to do, which I understand. And I ended up having to take another job as a custodian, making $8.25 an hour a seat working in downtown Raleigh. And I tell everybody I had no issues about working as a custodian because I needed money to pay the bills, and there was nothing beneath me. But the rock bottom moment of clarity for me was working as a custodian, taking out somebody's trash, and somebody's trash, rotten meat, nasty protruding garbage, right, Asif, got over my body, my skin, and my clothes. And that was the wake-up call that I needed to get my life back on track. And after that moment, I stopped looking at other people. I stopped blaming others. I stopped saying it was their fault or this fault or their fault. It was 100% Marques's fault. And from that day forward, I stopped playing victim mode. I stopped saying poor me, and I got my life together. And here we are at this time.
Yeah. And I think, to that point, I really think that's something that everyone who's listening to this should take away, because, at some point, for me, when I was playing the AIF, I was working as a pizza driver, making $8 an hour. And, it was some of the most fun I ever had, right? But it wasn't paying the bills, right? And so that's why I realized, okay, I have to go back to school. I have to figure out ways to make, actual end meets. And, the rest was history, right? Kind of to your point, that was my turning point to say, okay, everything I've exhausted my options in football, right? I've exhausted my options as, doing what I can without a degree, right? What is it that I really need to figure out? And I realized, hey, health IT was going to branch out. That branched out to overarching IT, right? And then basically ended up being me being a consultant. For you, obviously, that results in you becoming not just a business owner, but also a keynote speaker, right? And then now, obviously, a podcaster. And your podcast is doing very well. I listened to Nate Boyd episode yesterday, and anyone. Well, hey, Marques, can you drop the name of your podcast for listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. See, it's called the Lev and Marques Show.
Lev and Marques.
What it is we interview all types of amazing people with amazing stories from all backgrounds, all different ethnicities, all different walks of life. And we really highlight and let our guests talk. We ask some very, thought-provoking questions, more about who they are, why they do what they do, not so much what they do. People can read stats and facts and all that stuff. We're more about the humanistic side, the human side of who they are, the emotional side, because people want to get to know people beyond their job. So with Nate, we did a really nice job trying to, asking him questions about upbringing, how he got into the military, why he did it, why he went to go play football at Texas, the NFL, and then what he's doing now. And he really had some great information on different topics, and like the Colin Kaepernick topic. He talked a lot about, why he got into being a Green Beret or another branch of the military. He just did a really nice job talking about his beliefs and how he said, in our country, you don't have to agree with everybody, but he fought for our country to give people the right to do what they wanted to do. So having him on was just absolutely awesome, Aseet, because he's a real life hero. But again, we interview all types of people, amazing people with amazing stories.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, his story is amazing, but I mean, your story is just as amazing, right? In my opinion, because obviously for you, I mean, you were multi-talented as well, right? I mean, in terms of football was obviously your God-given gift, but it wasn't. I mean, I remember. I think I read your interview. You basically said that football was not what you're planning to do at Brown. You're planning to pursue finance. I think you're a finance major, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And so you're pretty much going to pursue that full force. You ended up being very successful in football. The rest was history, right? I mean, you basically enjoyed a very nice long career in the NFL, right? And then obviously you transitioned to IFL, AIF, kind of my scene, the indoor scene, and for me, hearing your story, it helps me and it inspires me, because obviously, like for me, I wasn't able to play football in high school, and so because I just wasn't taking school seriously enough. So when I basically was around my junior year of high school, that's when I started actually getting my grades to get my act together. And I ended up actually graduating a semester early. And then that's when I really wanted to start because I realized, oh my God, I missed out on all my freaking 4 years of football, right? And I'm just sitting here like, what are my options, right? And obviously the JUCO route, right? Pretty much, and so Last Chance U, right? That resonates with me. And so I asked around, called all the JUCOs, Chabot College, all the local JUCOs here in the Bay, and I ended up finally, everyone just said, yeah, if you don't have any film, I mean, it's gonna be tough money, right? And then San Jose City College with Coach Dub, who's now the assistant wide receivers coach at the Ravens, they basically said, can you show up to practice? I said, sure. And then I showed up, and I wasn't obviously the biggest, I wasn't the fastest, I wasn't the strongest, but essentially, my will and my ability to never quit on play was what helped me get that last spot on San Jose City's roster back in 2008. And, that's pretty much kind of what I just took with me, as kind of the life lesson, as in, the biggest thing is that, it doesn't matter how gifted you are, how talented you are. I mean, if you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to pursue full force, then, you can make something out of your dream.
Oh, that's anybody that's willing to put in the hard work, the dedication, and do what needs to be done. In my opinion, they have the right to pursue their dream and make it an accomplishment or make it their reality, no matter what field they're in. As long as they're not hurting anybody and they're not doing anything that's ill will or illegal, have at it. Sports, business, technology, starting a brand, changing jobs, transitioning, working through difficult times, traveling, moving to another country, all the things that you want to do them. As long as you're willing to put in the work and what it takes to get to where you want to go, or like to say, get to your finish line and beyond, have at it. I want everybody to live their best life possible.
100%. Totally agree with that. Now we're going to get into some of your best moments. What would you say was your best moment in your football career from both college and then the pros?
Of course, college was, becoming a starter as a freshman, which was amazing when I wasn't sure how that was going to work out. And then, of course, in the NFL, just being drafted from Howard University to the National Football League and enjoying my time in the National Football League.
Yeah. And then would you say that there's a different moment for the indoor scene, like the IFL and the AIF?
Yeah, indoor scene, it was fun actually playing defense and being able to utilize my skill sets that I had amassed from being an old lineman for so long to play defense, to be able to take advantage of how to pass rush, how to utilize my hands, how to work through different situations. And I really enjoyed that for sure.
It's interesting about it. What's interesting about that statement, Lincoln Kennedy is also a guest of the show. I'm hoping to have him back on next couple of weeks. He basically was also in the arena scene near the end of his career, played for the Tampa Bay Storm. And he basically, and he enjoyed it, you know what I mean? But, I love the fact, kind of to your point, the duality, right? Because for me, even though I was a wide receiver or a slot, I was able to also get in as corner and basically be effective in blitz packages, off the edge, right?
Right.
And
that's all. And here's the thing, man, like that's the thing about arena. If you're willing to go out there and do what you need to get done, you'll find it, and you have the heart to do it, and you have the technique to do it, they'll put you on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. Heart is number one in the arena, I think, more than anything else, right? But no, you're right. Technique is key. Technique is so key. I mean, I remember for me when I went to the Cal Eagles back in 2012, I was actually cut twice before I actually made a roster. The San Jose SaberCats, I got invited to the combine. I'm not sure if you remember them, the SaberCats
Oh
back
yeah,
here in
of course.
yeah. I got invited to combine in 2010 after my sophomore year of JUCO. I had the option of walking on at a D3 or basically going to the combine. I basically went to the combine, then forfeited my last 2 years of eligibility, and I got cut. And then basically then the next year, then the coach for the Stockton Wolves, because that's when the AIF was starting to establish their presence here. They started the San Jose Wolves that year with Coach Papp, like Steve Pappin. And then basically, then they moved to Stockton, and they basically said, "Hey, yeah, no, we saw your film, this and that. Yeah, you want to come out?" I said, "Sure, I'll come out." And I came out, and then basically, it was me down to the last 3 guys, and then I ended up, not making the roster, which is fine. It's only a 25-man roster. Then the next year, basically, Stockton Wolves got rebranded as California Eagles. And then for me, basically, at that point, I was like, okay, they call me up. I'm like, okay, look, so it hasn't worked 2 times, maybe third time's charm. I don't know. Down to me, the last receiver. This receiver, he was so much better than me. He was faster. He was longer. He was stronger. Right. His route running was so crisp. But they saw that for me, like I just wouldn't give up. Special teams and all the other types of drills we had. I mean, I just saw my persistence, and I ended up getting that last spot. And I mean, yeah, it was incredible. Just for a kid who wasn't able to play in high school. And then, being able to go to JUCO as a walk-on, and then being able to get on an AIF team, it was just the best experience ever. For me, it's still kind of a trip I talk about it. But talking to you, because most of my guests, right? I mean, if they played arena, they only played in the AFL. They didn't play in the IFL or the AIF, right? And obviously for you being a veteran of both the NFL and the AIF, I mean, you might have a better appreciation or understanding, right, of kind of how that is, the dynamics and the inner workings and the differences between the two.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, you in the NFL, you have just the amount of money, the amount of resources, and in the AIFA or the AIF or the IFL, you're going to have much limited resources. It's not going to be the same type of fan base, but it's still football, and football is football. It's 8-man versus 11-man, and there's some things going on differently there. It's a lot faster and indoor. It's a lot more chance for collision and things of that nature, but it's still football. So what I tell everybody is, as long as you're willing to go out there and get involved and do what you need to do to help the team win, that's all that really matters.
100%. Since we're getting near the end of the year, what are some of your New Year's resolutions?
So for me, just continue to work on our brand, trying to get more online course-based stuff going, continue to try to grow our podcast with amazing guests and getting, reviews and getting, ratings through Apple and other forms that people can do that to help our show grow. Also looking to work on some other different partnerships with people for courses and, webinars and day events and challenges. So working on that as well. And then just trying to get much more exposure around our brand from the media perspective, which is really exciting, is trying to get out in front of more people and continue to grow our base of people that know about our show and know about who we are with our speaking, coaching, consulting, and of course, what we do with our podcasts.
100%. No, I think that's a great, kind of list of, resolutions. For me too, since I kind of rebooted this platform, you're my first guest on the newly rebranded platform, the digital Dreaming Off The Gridiron, right? Kind of, we're talking about, what we're doing, the dreams we're pursuing outside the gridiron. I think, that would be that's one of my goals too. I want to grow this platform. I try to grow the platform as much as I can. And, obviously just continue growing my independent business. And, I think the beautiful thing about the game is that it helps us connect. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what level I played, or, if you play at the highest level, you play at, college, the circle gets smaller the longer you play. And it's just so, I feel like I think gratitude is kind of the key lesson I'm taking away. Would you say that's kind of would you say that's a huge kind of takeaway for you in your playing career from all the different kind of setbacks you have, if I personally, but also, as a player?
Yeah, of course. I always have gratitude, and I'm grateful for what I was able to do playing football, playing in the NFL, playing in the AFL for a little bit, the IAF, the IFL, and it really helped make me a better person. It helped me to be able to deal with challenges when I lost everything in my bankruptcy. A lot of people will not be able to go through and deal with those challenges in a way which makes a an individual will be able to push through them and persevere. So I learned a lot when it comes to overcoming challenges, how to handle and overcome obstacles, how to be someone that perseveres and shows grit through football and playing throughout my entire career. So absolutely, football was a major positive factor in how I'm able to now live my life today.
Because when you think about it, even for me in the corporate setting, we're all in it. We're still, it's like the structure and the kind of the whole objective, right? There's a team, right? And essentially there's a common objective we're all trying to hit, in that team, right? And essentially, like you said, the decisions you make, kind of what you preach, in your speaking, the decisions you make and the accountability you take for your actions will help you either get closer to that objective or steer you off course. But you're not going to get any closer to it until you get to that point of moment of truth and realization of, understanding what that objective is and what steps you need to take to achieve it, And that's something
what I always tell people is, if you're going to pursue a goal, know exactly the destination, know exactly the roadmap, know exactly what you need to do to get there. What's your strategic plan? What's your tactical plan? When you have those things all set in one or all set in motion, that's where great things happen. So it all starts from your ability to understand where you want to go, how you're going to get there, and then push towards that targeted destination or the finish line, whatever you want to call it, and go beyond. Because if you just get to the finish line, more times now you come up a little bit short. So I tell everybody, go to the finish line and beyond. And that's what football kind of taught me.
100%. Totally agree. 100%, brother. Now, have you been watching the NFL this year, or kind of,
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of, who are your picks from both conferences, and or kind of what are you expecting for the playoffs?
This is probably one of the most difficult seasons to pick this time. I'm going to have to go with the Chiefs on the AFC. They started out very, very slow, but once their offensive line got cohesion and could work well together, that's when great things started to happen for them. So I picked the Chiefs out of the AFC, and in the NFC, you've got Green Bay looks good. Arizona has promise. The Rams have promise. Dallas is always going to be formidable with what they've got going on. So, but I would have to probably pick, I'm going to go out on the limb here and probably pick the Packers. I think the Packers are playing really great football right now. I think they can beat Arizona. At the beginning of the year, Arizona had their number. I don't feel Dallas is going to be able to show up in big games. I think they do a really great job in the regular season, but once the postseason comes, they come up short, in my opinion. So I think it's going to be Green Bay and Kansas City.
I think so too. I agree. Because I think it just looks like Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers is having an MVP style year, in Kansas City, the second half of the season, they've shown so much just consistency and just, that's when they get momentum. I'm a 49ers fan, so I was there when I went to the championship game to see us to blow out Aaron Rodgers, and then the next week, 2 weeks later, we had to go play Kansas City, Miami. It was just, it was not nice,
I agree.
Second half team.
Never talk about.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure. Do you have a fan? Are you a fan of any particular team?
I'm a Raven fan.
Ravens. Okay, yeah. So I'm not sure do you know Keith Williams, my coach? He's there, assistant passing game coordinator.
No, I don't know Keith. I don't know. No, I don't know Keith.
Okay. Yeah, he just joined this season, so this is his first year. Yeah.
Good.
So yeah, no, he's definitely he works with all the kind of top tier names, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill. He works with all of them, and so this was a long time coming for him because he'd been coaching for 20 years at D1 and JUCO. So I'm glad he finally got his opportunity. And Baltimore is kind of up and down this year, right? But
yeah, they're not gonna. I seriously doubt they're gonna make the playoffs. I just think they have too many injuries, and they lost 2 big games in a row. Going for the extra. Actually, I'm sorry, 3 big games in a row. Sorry, they lost 3 big games in a row, and I think their momentum is gone. I think all the gas is out of their tank, unfortunately. And I don't think Lamar's going to come back and play this season. I just don't see it. And unfortunately, I think that's going to be their goose is going to be cooked for this year.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that's pretty on point pretty on point take. So, all right. So we have roughly 4 minutes left. Kind of, you know, what are your parting thoughts, or kind of what are your kind of, you know, takeaways for our listeners?
Basically, I tell everybody that in life, when you have dark times and things are difficult, focus on the light. Don't worry about what you can't control. Focus on what you can control, which is going to be transitioning through difficult times, hard times, and just keep pressing forward. Don't dwell. Don't be negative. Those are things that aren't going to get you anywhere. So again, just focus on the light and learn how to have great emotional intelligence and push yourself forward.
Those are such great parting thoughts for our listeners. And I want to just kind of underscore that point. Emotional intelligence can help kind of make you or break you, because if you have good emotional intelligence, you'll know when to separate your rationale from your ethos, and you'll know kind of what decisions to make in what setting. And, you know, I also think, you know, find the light inside of you, what your passion is and what pushes you. You know, I think for me personally, right, my career is great. And I love kind of, you know, having this forum, this platform to be able to connect with other very inspirational, professional major league athletes like yourself, Marques, who've done so many great things in his career and his life. And, you know, I just wanted to say, you know, for me personally, it was really short, right? I mean, I'm hoping we can do this again sometime, you know, in the future.
Sure.
Yeah. And no, I really enjoyed kind of, you know, hearing about, you know, your perspectives, your life journey, you know, both, you know, in football and out of football to what you're doing today. And I just wish you continued success, you know, through the new year and your keynote speaking and your business. And, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing what's to come on the Lev Marques Show.
Sounds good, Steve. Have a great day, my friend. Talk to you soon. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. No, take care, brother.
All right, bye.